All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Not Yesterlore. This is my first, I'll call it my first project stream. I've done little streams where I work on something else a couple times, but it wasn't made with the intention of being a project stream. But this is my first project stream, which I hope to make a thing moving forward when I can. What we're doing today is something I mentioned in Yesterlore yesterday, which is I'm redoing a project that I did 10 years ago. I guess I started it 11 years ago, but I was in high school when I did this project. I translated the ainulindalë into Old English, and the ainulindalë is the first chapter of what you can now purchase as the Silmarillion. It's sort of a standalone story, though. It's about the creation of the universe, and it's very opaque, at least in the version that you find in the Silmarillion. So the chapter is by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm not going to display the chapter because it's still under copyright, but what we're going to do is we're going to adapt it into an alliterative verse poem, and we're going to use my high school translation as sort of like a reference point, because I've thought through how to translate certain parts of this before. But again, I was in high school, and I would have made some different choices now. Here is the actual text of my translation in high school. And it's just the entire chapter in prose, pretty close to word for word. It's not exactly word for word, because whenever you translate, things don't always translate exactly. So what I did was, to the best of my ability, translated it into Old English prose, that still had a lot of the same associations or connotations that seemed to me, to my mind, in my analysis as a high school student, of the text. Now, the text that you get in the Silmarillion is pretty much verbatim the text that you can find in the book Morgoth's Ring, which is the 10th volume of the history of Middle-earth. And it is very late in Tolkien's, J.R.R. Tolkien's thought on how to tell this story. He had already written Lord of the Rings at this point. However, the story of the ainulindalë throughout his life, every time he rewrote it, did not change all that much. And it seems like his conception of what was going on didn't change all that much in that time. The changes that he made were not conceptual exactly, so much as making things less explicit, which makes the final product that you can read in the Silmarillion a lot more difficult to understand, I think. I have right here the first volume of the book of the history of Middle-earth, which is the Book of Lost Tales 1, and it has the music of the Ainur in here, but it's quite different. And what's interesting is that it starts with, before it, back in the Book of Lost Tales days, Tolkien had a frame story around everything, an explicit frame story. The Silmarillion still has a frame story, it's just not included in the text of the book, but it's implied in The Lord of the Rings. But one of the things that's going on here is you have someone whose people will become the early English. England doesn't exist yet in this timeline in the story yet, because Tol Eressëa, which is where the elves live, will become England because it gets dragged over the sea and put there. But the traveler, Erio, is talking to Rúmil, who is sort of telling him ancient elvish stories. This human asks, "Tell me, Rúmil, I beg, some of what you know, even of the first beginnings, that I may begin to understand those things that are told to me in this isle." But Rumil said, Iluvatar is the first beginning, and beyond that no wisdom of the Valar or of the Eldar or of men can go. And Ariel asks, who was Iluvatar? Was he of the gods? And Rumil says, nay, that he was not, for he made them. Iluvatar is the Lord for always, who dwells beyond the world, who made it, and is not of it or in it, but loves it. So then Rumil goes on to say that, for 'tis early days in the world of men as yet, nor is the music of the Ainur much spoken of. And so then he goes into the music of the Ainur. And this version is a lot more explicit about what things mean that you can find in the later example that's published in the Silmarillion. So, for example, in the published Silmarillion, you get this idea of, like, musical themes. Iluvatar tells, like, kind of propounds themes to the Ainur, and then they make the music, and he adds more themes to it. And then later he kind of reveals, now here's your themes played about, and they sort of see a vision of basically time going through, like, the history of the world. In this early version, he specifically, like, it's explicit that Iluvatar propounded histories to them. He says, where is it? I lost it. Oh yeah, no, it says, he would speak propounding to them themes of song and joyous hymn, revealing many of the great and wonderful things that he devised ever in his mind and heart. And now they would make music unto him, and the voices of their instruments rise in splendor upon his throne, or about his throne. Upon a time, Iluvatar propounded a mighty design of his heart to the Ainur, unfolding a history whose vastness and majesty had never been equaled by aught that he had related before. And the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amazed the Ainur, so that they bowed before Iluvatar and were speechless. So that last part is almost word for word in the published Silmarillion, the bowing part. They were amazed. The glory of its beginning and the splendor of its ending amazed the Ainur, and they bowed before Iluvatar and were silent in the published Silmarillion. But he explicitly tells them a history. Like, we're going to make history with this song, not just make it so great that it will go down in history, but they are creating history. But what's interesting is that in the Book of Lost Tales, the Ainur are called gods. The Ainur are the Valar and the Maiar, and basically the angelic-like beings. I don't like the word angelic, because it's not what they are. They don't send messages. That's what angels do. They send messages. But that sort of type of being, basically disembodied, powerful beings created by the One, as he is called. Eru is the One, and then Iluvatar is All Father. So what I did in my translation when I was in high school is I called him Al-Father, because that word, that's like a compound that you can make. Usually it's in Germanic languages, like the cognate to this is used to describe Odin in Old Norse. And in England, Woden is like the head of, at the top of a lot of king genealogies and stuff. So he's considered a father figure. But here, it's the An. Say An. An is one. I almost used Anna. I remember in high school I was thinking of using Anna, because that's more of like a taking an adjective and turning it into a noun thing. But in Old English, Anna means more like alone, the alone one. And Eru is not alone, because he has these Ainur around him. And I translated Ainur as Halga, because Ainu means Holy One. Ainu is the singular of Ainur. Ainu is Holy One, and Halga is Holy One. And it's used for angels, or what we would probably modern English call angels, in Bible translations in Old English. So I thought that was appropriate to use Halga. I'm not going to read through this whole thing that I wrote in Old English, but we're going to use it when I'm like sort of thinking back to what I need to include as I go through this translation. So what you're seeing is my blank document, but you'll also see me pop back to this from time to time. I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit. Of this one. Yeah. I might do the same here because it's pretty zoomed out here too. It's just all about centering it so you can still see the text. There we go. So, I'm going to be composing alliterative verse. Now, if you've come to my Isterler streams or watched them, you've seen me read Old English alliterative verse, but we've never composed it before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that works. You're going to get to see my process for how I compose Old English alliterative verse. Everyone has a different process, but there's some things to keep in mind. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth than I usually do in talking about the meter. There are a lot of different theories of alliterative verse meter because there's like disagreement about certain aspects of it. However, some things that are pretty much true all the time, with some exceptions. There's always going to be an exception, but we have the two half lines on each line. So I have like, actually, you know what I should do is grab some alliterative verse from somewhere. Just grab a random piece of alliterative verse. I probably have one in another window open. So I'm working on another project right now as well that involves alliterative verse. Let me grab a piece. Maybe I have some of the Seafarer right here. That's what I'm reading for my other project. What would be a good line? Contextlessly to yeet. This is hard to grab. I'm wasting time on this. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to just start. This line is fun because it's just two words, but this is super not the norm. Put two very strange alliterative verse lines here. And these aren't marked for length at all, just because the other document where I have these are not length marked yet. So, actually I think it's a quote from another author who didn't length mark it, so I'm not going to length mark these. So, we have two alliterative verse lines. These are both full alliterative verse lines that both follow the rules somehow. Oh wait, no, that first one isn't full. The first one is not full, I'm so sorry. I was going to say, they cut it off. They started at the second half line on that one. I'll grab a different one. Ooh, the Wanderer. There we go. Let's grab some Wanderer lines. Those are always good. Okay. So we have two half lines, and where do I break them? Well, I break them here. Okay. So this sort of area of more space, I'll give more space to it, just so you can see it better. What's going on is with each alliterative verse line, we have both sides alliterating with each other. And you might remember that the second, whoa, yeah, oh, I highlighted the wrong thing. The alliteration is W here. Oh, this is a good example because I can explain some other things. The second half line only gets to alliterate once with the first. The first can do it twice or once, as you can see in this example. So here we have wedi mod wirda withstanden. Sechrew hye helpe je fremma. It has to be the first stressed syllable of the second half line, at least stressed metrically. There could be another sort of stressed syllable before it if it's like some kind of article or something short before it. But it has to be like the main, usually noun, in the second half line that alliterates with the first, and only that. The last one cannot alliterate. And you might be wondering, wait, there's W here. But it doesn't alliterate because the stress is here. I'm going to underline the stresses here, the stressed syllables. Nemai wedi mod wirda withstanden. With is a really common prefix for verbs. This is where we get the word withstand from. And then we have sechrew, that's long here. Sechrew hye helpe je fremman. So we have 4 stressed syllables, and either 2 or 3 of them will alliterate. 2 can be in the first half, only 1 can be in the second half, and it has to be the first stressed syllable. It alliterates. So a couple other things. I'm going to add in length now, because length actually does matter, because there's something called syllable weight that you need to think about when you're thinking about the Old English alliterative verse. So what's going on here is, I think the ne here is short, yeah. It is neither, so it can be long, I think, but I think it's short. Nemai wedi mod wirda withstanden. So we, this E here is long, wedi mod. Mod is long either way, or it's heavy either way, because not only does it have a long vowel, but it ends with a consonant. And if you end with a consonant, then you are heavy. Wirda is heavy because it has this R at the end of the syllable. And then ston as well. It has this N at the end of the syllable because the next syllable has a consonant there. So if you have 2 consonants, then you're sort of safe in terms of heaviness. The stresses are supposed to be what we call 2 mori, at least. Mori are a little tricky in Old English because there are some like diphthongs that are monomoric, but at least in terms of how you're supposed to count it. But you don't need to worry about that as the viewer right now. So the sort of only problematic syllable that we have here, because help has an L at the end, fremman, double M, so the M at the end. Hye is a problem because this is a short Y. Whoops. This is a short Y. But there's sort of a get out of jail free card when it comes to having short syllables if you are a stressed, like one of the stresses in alliterative verse. And it's that the next syllable is also short. If you have sort of like 2 short syllables in a row, ye is thankfully short. What this means is these 2 syllables together make the stress. It's almost like they're combining. Hye. That shortness makes up for it. And there are quite a few examples of that throughout Old English where you can see like this should break the rules, but you have like 2 shorts next to each other in a row. So it's fine. And some poems do not even observe this sort of rule about the length, especially later composed one. So, all that is to say, I'm going to be keeping those things in mind about the meter as I go through this adaptation. So, how do I start? Well, what I want to think about is what is included here. So I'm going to look at my Old English version here. We've got saan, tharwas, Sethe on Yarda is Alfader in Emnet. I might not hold some of these adaptations of names that I did. I think I'm going to keep to Alfader. I might keep on as well for Eru. Alfader is really good, I think, for Iluvatar, because I'm pretty sure that's what Tolkien had in mind when he made that word. Iluva means all, and Atar means father, but when you combine them into Iluvatar, it sort of sounds like Alfader in Old Norse. So I think he was aware of that, and Alfader for the Old English, it almost sounds like the Elvish word, so that's always nice. So I'm probably going to keep that. It's kind of strange for Old English because Alfader not referring to Woden seems weird, but oh well, we'll deal with it. And I'm not stuck with, I don't think I'm going to keep Yarda here for Arda. I might go Ard instead. I've been thinking about this a lot. Ard does sound more like Arda. It's just like an Old Englishified version of Arda. It's Ard, E-A-R-D, without the G there. But the other thing I like about it is that in the Silmarillion, I can't remember if it's in the ainulindalë or not, but Arda is called the habitation of the children of Iluvatar. And Ard means land or country or like earth, but it also means like a dwelling place or a home. Yad is more inspired by the word Midanyad, that's what I was thinking of with Middle Earth. But it also means enclosure, which also works. I think those were the connotations I was going for. I'm trying to remember what I was going for 10 years ago is hard, but I think I'm going to switch to Arda because it is Ad because it's closer to Arda, and I like the implications of it, and bonus, it alliterates with Alfad. So that's cool. Although I might not need it to alliterate. I'll have to think about this. Let's get started. So I might still start the same way, set on therawas, if I can make it work metrically. So we've got, I'm going to make the font bigger just for now. I don't want to zoom in more. I'm just going to make the font bigger to make it easier to read. Alright, set on. For now, instead of capitalizing, I don't like capitalizing, I'm just going to bold names. So on. Oops, whoops. What's going on? Sorry, my computer's doing a weird thing. So on. Thára. Was. I'm not sure I like that phrasing anymore, to be honest. Not sure I love that phrasing anymore. I think what I want to do is, because it doesn't feel very poetic to me. That might just be me being weird, but it doesn't feel very poetic. It works metrically, I think. I just realized I'm super cut off right now. This must be a horrible experience if you're viewing this. I'm so sorry. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Hopefully it's a little better. Sorry. I just realized that was not coming through very well. So, so on therawas. So on therawas. Having was be the stressed is weird because it's heavy, but it's a verb. And you can have the stress be verbs, but like having it be a copular verb like was is very strange. This might be pushing heaviness because having a double, like a compound, like alfader, as one of your stresses, it could function as two stresses technically in some circumstances, but it does appear. I'm going to say that set on the one otha alfader actually, I might do a weird thing. I don't know. This might be. Metrically weird, but I think it works. What's that? Allfather. Aarde. Genemnet. The one or Iluvatar on Arda named. So then our alliteration is vowels. Any vowel can alliterate with any vowel in Old English. So an, otha alfader, on Arda genemnet. So we have 2 on the first half and 1 on the second half. And genemnet just means named. The one our Iluvatar on earth named was existed, because that's really all the first sentence says. It's there's the one, there was Eru, the one who in Arda is called Iluvatar, is the first line there. We could just skip that and just go into the actual rest of the sentence. And he addest þára shelp. I might just have it be shelp this time. Shelp. Yeah. Yeah. This is the past of shipan. Well, a shipan here, but I think shipan works too. And he first made the Ainur. The children of his thought. I might use hiya here for thought instead, because that alliterates with hálgen. So, artist. Hujebern ashab. Artist, yeah, okay. Artist fa hálgen his hujebern. I just made up this word. Barn meaning children, and huya is thought. So his hujebern shelp. So the one or Iluvatar named in Arda first made the holy ones, his thought children. The Old English here says, he addis the hálgen ashelp, thewaron the barn his yathankes. And I don't actually like the translated. I don't like the use of yathankes that I did here in high school. That was not very good of me. I think huya is better here. And he waron made him arwarth nawicht ellis. They were with him before anything else came to be. Anything else happened. I don't know if I need to include that in the poem. I might just go into the next thing that happened. He sprak to him gleues and timbro yerekände. So, I'll explain some terms here. These are just some terms I already translated. So gleo is one way to say music. Gleo. It's where we get the word glee from. And then we have the verb here is yerechan, which is to retell a story, to recount, or to put down something written. It can also mean that. And here I think I'm using it to translate the word propound in the original English. Or yerechan. I'm pretty sure it's yerechan with palatalization there. Yeah, palatalization. Explain, narrate, stretch out, reach out. Yerechan. But the word that I used for here, gleues an timbro. Gleo being music, but an timber is this word here, and this is just in the plural. An timbro is the plural. Antimber means like a matter, substance, or theme. And in Tolkien's English, he uses the word theme, so I used antimber there. But it means material, and you can see how it might be related to the word timber. Timbrian means to build something with wood, and timber is the wood that you use to build with. So it's sort of like a metaphor of wood, like expressed just to mean like any kind of material. And here it's a material of gleo, of music. And I'm trying to remember if the W should be there or not. I think it should. It shows up with and without the W. It's a wa stem though, I think, because I think it's gliwa in Proto-Germanic. Now, the main meaning of gleo is actually like happiness or play. It's kind of reflected in the way that we use glee now, as yay, glee. But also we have like glee club for music. The sense of music in Old English, when it is used for music, is like accompaniment to something else, which I liked the implications of gleo for that reason. So I want to keep that, but I'm trying to figure out what else can alliterate there. We have glad here, which can alliterate very well with gleo. He sprak. He him sprak. Oh no, I'm going to use that gun there, actually. I don't think I'm going to do any kind of alliteration with SP. Yerachta. That's what I'd probably use. Yerachta or Yerachta. Yerachta. He him Yerachta. Still past tense verb, okay. Dréam at for him. They played before him and he was glad, okay. Could I do, I'm going to use vowel alliteration again. Antimber. Oh yeah. So here, I forgot to point this out, the H alliteration here. And this hiss here doesn't count. It is like a sort of possessive adjective here, hiss. So it doesn't count as a stress syllable because it's not stressed. Aris tha hálgan hiss. Hiyabarn shell. So the hiss is kind of metrically you just kind of ignore it. This isn't Shakespeare where you're counting the syllables. There is a little bit of syllable counting in alliterative verse. Like there's a certain amount of unstressed syllables after the final stress of a half line that you don't want, but there are lines that break that sometimes. But in terms of like before the stress, you can have quite a few things, like almost like a bunch of different relative pronouns and stuff show up a lot of the time before the actual stress of something. Gerechte, propounded to them. Gerechte. Am I going to do vowel alliteration again? I guess I could do R too, but it's kind of weird with it being the verb. I guess I could do vowel alliteration again. Antimber. He propounded to them a theme. Something that starts with a vowel. Something that starts with a vowel. I think what I want to do... Where's my underscore? Here it is. Something that starts with a vowel and then say what the theme was, which is music. And I kind of want to say Leo for later. Because there's no G for it to alliterate with. This G here is part of the y prefix, so the reh is the stressed syllable there. So it would need to be R if it alliterated. And timber, and the stress is on and. So it's and does show up as a prefix sometimes, but here as a noun it's stressed here on and timber. Something that starts with a vowel probably, or maybe R. I'm gonna say music, which in Old English is dréam. That's sort of the more general word for music is dréam. And dréaman or dréaman is to play music. It is where we get the word dream from, but it is not the word dream in Old English very usually. It's not. Dream is matting, which I think I mentioned in my Estrela stream yesterday. So, he propounded to them a theme of something music. Maybe just a word for great that starts with a vowel. Okay, my brain's going in a direction. I'm just trying to choose the best way to make it into an adjective, because I'm thinking of the word ellen, which means strength. But I don't think I've ever seen an adjective form of it in Old English, ellen. Like ellen full. Feels like it makes sense. Ellen does exist as an adjective, but that's from a different root. It means having to do with elder, like the wood. And just using some kind of inborn adjective derivation makes me feel like it would have more of that meaning, potentially. So maybe I want to make a compound with ellen. The only compounds I know with ellen that are nouns are... there's allindalë, which is like a great deed of strength, and ellenkraft, which is just another way of saying ellen, strength. But I could take kraft to make it crafty. Ellenkrafty, dréam. Ellenkrafty, dréam. Pretty sure dréam is masculine. I'm willing to bet on that because I think the root is draumas, Proto-Germanic, so I think it's dréam is masculine. So that would need to be, because he's propounding it to them, so it's dréam. There we go. This ne here it's the accusative for adjectives, strong adjectives. In Old English, the accusative marks the object, the direct object, which this is, because it's what he's propounding. He propounded to them a theme, a powerful music. And it's going to be through their ellenkraft that it comes about. So I think ellenkraft is a good word to use there. Have I been shift entering all of these? Yeah, I have. Okay, good. I want them to all show up as if they're the same paragraph. Okay. Okay. So the next thing that we get after he propounds the theme, he propounds themes, right? He hasn't done the theme, capital T, yet. So I'm going to make this plural. Okay, antimbru. Ellenkraftiga dramas. There we go. Pardon me. So once he propounds themes, plural, to them, they play music, and he was glad. Should we include that? Oh, that doesn't work. The keyboard, there we go. And I'll just type out and for now. I'll use ampersand maybe for now. Okay. And here, they played music for him, and he was glad. Yeah, he dreamed on before him, right? At foran is what I used. I think at foran works. He had dreamed on at foran. And so it's F or D here that I could use. Maybe I could use a different verb. Maybe I can use glowian instead. So then I get that glow there, and I can alliterate it with glad. Yep, I'll do it, yeah. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to use gliwi on here. I don't think I need to do the back mutation. I'm using West Saxon here, and the back mutation in West Saxon is pretty limited. So I think I'll use gliwian instead of glowian. On tha, here, gliwodan. Okay, gliwodan at foran. Tha glad was al-fadr. Okay. Cool. So So I have tha here. So when you have tha, it's sort of coordinated in Old English. It can mean when, then, or if, then, that kind of thing. So when they played before, I might need to change that since it's an adverb here. I think you can actually just use it as an adverb without any change. It sounds fun. Maybe just foran would be better in front. Yeah. Fa hia foran gliodon. Tha glad was alfader. When they played in front, played music, then glad was he. Okay. That works. But then we have, first they each sang alone or few together while the rest listened. So each took only that part of the mind of Alfader whence they arose, because they arose from his mind. And slowly they were growing in the understanding of their brethren. And among them who listened, they came to deeper understanding, and their music improved, basically. So, now, lange skile, I said to langere skile here. I did not know as much about alliterative formula at the time. I would use lange skile probably, because that is a formula that exists. Var glad was alfader. Okay. Ak. If I use lange skile, I need to alliterate with either L or H. So, I want to say alone, though. Alone is going to be Anna or Anna or Anna. So that's going to be vowel alliteration. Maybe I might actually revise this line to make it clear that they're each doing it alone. Fa. I could say, well, each. I might just do alch. Yeah. Well, each played. When each played, then Iluvatar was glad. And the others hearkened for a long while. There we go. óðra, wouldn't it? Yeah. Óðra. Hálgena. Óðra. Lange hvile. Okay. Put few together thin and the hálgena. Everything on each, yeah. Each only had the comprehension of the piece of the mind of Luvatar that were given, that from which they arose. Okay, so that's kind of tricky. How am I going to adapt that? For then, because whoops, aras oh, forgot the length here. Aras. Each arose. I'm doing vowel alliteration again. Because each arose from one part, maybe. Of Anna or Anis. Ainulindalë or the ainulindalë. Ainulindalë. Of ainulindalë. Thus, allfader huye. Of the mind of allfader. Yahid instead, like I did there. Yahida. This doesn't change the alliteration. But I think Yahid is actually feminine, isn't it? Which would make it Yahida, þára, allfader Yahida, wouldn't it? Or is it neuter? Neuter or feminine? Yahid might be feminine. Actually, I might just keep it here. Yeah. this alliterative hyes. Unless, no idea. Orthankas. Orthank. Orthank is like inborn thought, or original thought, which I think works very well for this. It's also understanding and intelligence. It's also it is skill. And it's for these reasons that the tower at Isengard is called Orthanc. But it's interesting to connect it with the alphabet. I think that would be cool. Yeah, alphabet Orthancus, which makes this vowel alliteration again instead of H. But I think I want vowel alliteration here because I was thinking of understanden, or and yet. That's what I was thinking of. Understanding, and yet, knowledge, sense, or plan. And yet. But understanding grew. That's what I want to say. I think that's what I want to say. Hira, and yet, creo. Their understanding grew, but their understanding grew as they listened. Deeper from the music of the others. I hope you can't hear my stomach grumbling. I haven't eaten yet, so I need to do that soon. But, okay, and yet, deeper, and yet go deeper from listening to others. Okay. Deeper. ever the deeper. Figure out how I want to say this. Ever the deeper as listened to the dréam, the music, because I can alliterate deep with dream. When I say dream, I mean music. I don't mean modern English dream. Okay, I think I know how I'm going to do this. So antiad is neuter, so it would need to be deopra, I believe. Because it would be deopra if it were masculine. It's comparative. Comparatives use the weak declension. So this would be deopra. This is neuter. A deopra. Weox. It's another way to say grew. Waxed. Weox. Thana. Dréam. Ever deeper it waxed when dream. I'm trying to figure out what case dream should be in, but it depends on what verb I use. As the music I can't use dréam because I already have D alliteration. I can't have the last one have a D. I could use flow one. That feels like a very modern imagery, though. Music flowing like water. Although it does fit Tolkien, because he talks later in the Ainulindalë about how water preserves the music. Like the echo of the music remains in the water. So maybe this music can flow because it's related to water, or like water is related to it. Flowan is usually used of actual water in Old English. Or blood, or other things that flow. Trying to think of any examples where flowan is used. Flowan is used metaphorically. I'm sure it is. It has to have been. It's such a common word. But how it was used is my bigger question. Honey. I'm looking at other examples of flowan in literature right now. Honey flows a stream in its bed or fluid its surface. Water, tears, to become a liquid. Of persons, to resort in great numbers, come or go in streams. Okay, it's people. Of immaterial things passing away. Okay, I don't want to imply that. Swede fleonde. So lita thasslikoman is swede fleonde. The beauty of the body is greatly flowing, going away. To issue from a source. Okay, this is the sense that I want, but I'm pretty sure it's always used of physical water when it is. Let me see the examples here. All. Ooh, okay. Thence flowed all, like mercy and generosity. Okay. Inåt flöt livligt water. Okay. Blood. Another out. Flow. Inåt water flowing. Okay. It's used of like mercy and generosity here. In the present tense. Oh, these are present. Oh, that's past. That one's past too. Maybe I should just avoid flowan. I don't want to use gliwian again. And I can't use dréam because it has a D. If I flip it back around and have it be like and make the dream like an object, deeper it grew as like they listened to the music. That could work. Okay, I can use hlysnan to listen. I almost want to use hlosnian instead. Hlosnian implies that you're being quiet as you listen, and that you're expectant of something. You listen with expectation. But I don't know if you can have an object of hlosnian. I think it might be intransitive. Whereas hlysnan is transitive, I believe. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what case the object of hlysnan takes. Can hlysnan take an object? That's my real question. I don't think I've ever seen it. with an object. I think it might take the genitive. Oh, you know what does definitely take the genitive is hlistan. Okay, hlistan. And hlistan means to pay attention as you listen. So maybe that would be good to use hlistan. So þannig drámas hlistadan. Hlistadan? Would that be the past? I haven't used this verb in a while. I'm gonna look up its conjugation real quick because I do not remember how you do the past of this. Because it has a T. Is it one of those like double, like the T's eat each other? Yes. There we go. No period. Okay. So, adelpraweox ever deeper grew as they listened to the music. They paid attention to the music. So, let's read over this again, see where we're at. So, an och the alfader on ärde jag nämnde äresta halvan his hebern skälp. Hehem gerekte an timbro ellen kraftige dramas. An tha alch gliode, tha glad was alfader, an odre herknaden lange hvile. For den alch aras of ainulindalë thas alfader orthankas. Ak heura andjet greu. Adelpraweox thanadramas hlistan. Okay, so the one or All-Father on earth called first shaped the Holy Ones, his thought children. He propounded to them themes, powerful musics, and when each played their music, he was glad. And the others listened for a long while because each arose of one part of the original thought or of the skill of Iluvatar. But their understanding grew ever deeper. It grew when they listened to the music. Okay. That's good. That's sort of the situation at the beginning of the ainulindalë. It's basically this first paragraph turned into some lines of poetry. Okay. An het waarthet alfader abeon alle thahalgen samnan breme an timbro beside to him unfelden. I wouldn't use beside here like that anymore. Unfelden the þára to him he have the yana unrolling. Okay, so this is when he calls them all together and is like, okay, we're gonna do a big boy theme now. And this is the one that becomes the music, capital M, of the Ainur. So it's a brema an timbro. Brema an timbro. I think that's plural again. And if that's the case, then I made a mistake. Because the plural of brema in the neuter would be a U or an O. It would be bremo an timbro beside the time. Yeah, so a great music is what he ends up doing. That wulder thas anjenes and seglam thas endes amazda thaharwan. To him and so they bowed to him and they were silent. So basically, I think I can do this in just a couple lines. But Iluvatar called them to make a great music, glorious in beginning, splendid in ending, and they bowed. Something like that would work. Okay, so how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it thusly. So maybe I'll do a weird thing where I have paragraphs. Okay. What verb do I want to use for call them together? Do I want to use a bound again? Summon. Yeah. If I can squeeze this into one line, then bannan, the verb to summon, and brema for the theme can alliterate. That would be nice. So yeah. Then tha beon. Tha he beon him. I might move him here too. I was just sort of poetically putting the pronouns at the beginning of the line. Get out of the way for the stress, but I think I might put him here. He räckte him an timbröm. He beon him. At samna. Do I want to use together here? Samna. Samna. So I could do B or S. And breme antem. Breme. I'm not going to be able to fit that, though, if I do that. And a glorious theme. He called them together and brema and timber. Here brema is fine because it's singular, and the singular neuter here is brema because it's I believe it's an I stem adjective. And brema and timber. Gerechte him is then propounded to them. He called them together, and a great theme propounded to them. I could sort of anaphorically copy what I did before. Jag räckte hem ellenkraft i dréam. Maybe. Ellenkraft in a dréam. Jag räckte hem. But here we have R, and then we haven't even really established what else the alliteration could be. Jag räckte hem. Call them together, and a great theme. propounded to them. Maybe I save this, do himierechta, and save this for like the end of the line. Something himierechta. So I can just like go on and on about the theme for a minute, as Old English poetry is wont to do. And I can include that stuff about like glorious beginning, splendor of its ending. Okay. Wuldur, that wuldur of the beginning, and siglam, splendor of its ending. And this okay, I have an idea. But I won't use nouns, I'll use adjectives. Can I make glam an adjective? That's the real question. I think probably. Like glammy? Glamme? Maybe it's already an adjective that I've just never seen before. Glam. Glam is where we get the word gleam from, but it means like radiance, splendor, gleam, brilliance, brightness. I wonder if it can be an adjective though. I don't think so. I don't think there's any kind of like glammy or glamful or glamme. But glamme is the dative of glam, and I can do a thing that Old English likes to do, where you use the dative almost as if it's like an adverb, or in this case an adjective, sort of. Instead of saying like it's splendid ending, splendorous ending, I could say it's ending in splendor, which would just be putting it in the dative. In splendor would just be glamme. It's sort of like a cheater way to get something that can't be an adjective to be functioning adjectivally. It's like an adjectival prepositional phrase almost, but instead of using a preposition, I'm using Old English's case system. So I do need to think about the alliteration though. Let me just look at something real quick. If I use wuldur for glory, it's W, right? But a beginning, I think I used onion. Yeah, onion. Onion, and then end. I think it's enda, actually. I can't remember if it's end or enda. I believe it's enda. I think it's an I stem in Old English. Yeah, it's enda. So enda and onion alliterate. So those can be my alliterative pair, so I don't need to worry about wuldur or glam at all. And I'm pretty sure onion is neuter. Or maybe it's masculine. It's neuter. Yeah, onion. Okay. So, beginning in, and I'll just do both in the dative, just so that they are in parallel structure there. Parallelism is nice. So, it's beginning in glory, it's splendor at the ending. It's ending in splendor. Okay, that's a problem. That's ambiguous because it could also be talking about Iluvatar himself, and he does not have a beginning or ending in this story. So, maybe they need to be verbs. Maybe they need to be which begins in glory and ends in splendor. Because then I can use that the onioneth wuldre and endeth. Wait, is it endan or I think it's endian. I think endian is the verb. I don't think endan is a verb. Endian, I think, is the verb to end. So it'd be endeth. Wouldn't it? Endian. Oh, I'm like almost positive it's endian. Yeah, endeth. Yeah, that's right. All right. Endeth sounded so wrong. It sounds very modern English. Endeth. Probably might feel weird me saying that sounds modern, but it's modern English compared to Old English. To say endeth, it's Shakespearean. It's modern. All right. Let's see. I could say that, or I could just say the. I would not say the. The. Onions. The onions. I could make it instrumental. I could say like mid wuldra. The mid wuldra onions. Oh, that's too long. I can't include both in the same line. It's gonna push him Himjerekta to the next line again. That's okay. Then med wuldra onions and med glama endeth Himjerekta. And they were amazed. I think it's important to remember that this is still the object of this verb over here. This kind of thing does happen in Old English literature verse a lot. Like, the object and the verb are separated by several lines. And you can see it's not done purposefully. It's not purposefully trying to be confusing. It's just fitting the meter. So then he summoned them together, and a glorious theme, which begins in glory and ends in splendor, told to them the theme. Look back at the original, or not the original, but my original. It amazed þára and amazed them. Which I might not have used that word nowadays. I don't think I would have chosen that word. It's the etymon of amazed, but I don't think I would have used it. Actually, maybe, because I think Tolkien used it purposefully in a sort of moral sense. But anyway, they bowed to him and were silent. Maybe that's what I want to include. So maybe I don't use Himjerekta. Maybe I use a different verb for like told them. Maybe he taught it to them. That's a bit of a different implication, I guess, but I think it's there though. I think that implication is there. Let me look at the Book of Lost Tales version. Revealing many of the great and wonderful things he devised ever in his mind. That devised ever in his mind is what was making me push towards Orthanc. And now they would make music. Okay, instruments. About his throne. Okay. Upon a time and a profound mighty design at the heart. Unfolding history. Majesty. Before. You were elated. That'll be it. Yeah. You were speechless. Laid before you. Laid before them. I could just say that. But can I say that? That's the real question. Because usually lejan is used of dead people. But you can also lay other things down, right? Like you can lay down the mast. You can lay down eggs. You can lay eggs. Ainulindalë. Lastas lejan, to journey, to leave footprints. That's nice. Maybe lejan. Or lejan. Maybe. No, not to listen. To lejan. Yelejan. How is that used? I don't think I've ever used yelejan before. I almost want to say makes better sense as a prefix here. Lejan or something, but I don't know if that's attested. Lejan. Is that attested at all? It is. That has more of an imposing sense. Maybe for lejan. No, I don't think that works. Yeah, I don't know if this phrasing works. I don't think this lay before them. To set before. The reason I'm thinking lejan is because I'd like something that alliterates with L, because I want to use lutian. Or I think it's just lutan to bow. Maybe I will use taught. Lärde him. Him lärde. No, I'm going to use late. There's some phrasing from the Wanderer that I think I'm going to snatch. Larquida. Larquida is like teachings, or some might use it to translate doctrine, or precepts, principles. And the music, or at least his sort of outline of the music he gives them, are sort of like the principles that he lays down. And they are, especially in the Book of Lost Tales version, they're sort of encouraged to improv over it. So he laid down as larquida, and it's masculine, so I'm going to say as precepts, larquidum. He laid larquidum. So this could be like as precepts or with precepts, with this genitive or dative plural used in the instrumental sense. So that they bowed to him. Or whereupon they bowed to him. I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase this. For the him luton. For the luton hear him. Wherefore bowed they to him. I need one more word here for my final stress, because luton is the first stress here. For the is just like a connecting word, like wherefore. They bowed to him something. Some kind of adverb, maybe, that does not alliterate with L. Silently. There we go. And we're silent, so I could just say silently. That works. So I'm not going to say sugodon, I'm going to say silently, which would be... I could just say stilice. That's the first thing that came to my mind, but I think I'll say swiend. Liche. Okay. Now what did he say? So then he called them together, and a great theme that begins with glory and ends with splendor he laid before them with as principles, whereupon they bowed to him silently. Okay. And then what happens? Then Alfadar Quathas on timbre stage have they erecto each no will they dréam and gather dréam. Okay, so now he's saying I want you to do it great. Like, of the themes I have given to you, I now want you to play together a great music. So, and since I, like, I ignited you, basically, with the flame imperishable, which I translate blast and prose ainulindalë. You shall adorn this theme with each individual's thoughts, if you will. And I will sit and listen and be glad that through you great beauty is awakened into song. So, I really like my choice of achin here, because it is actually just the past participle of akan or achan. Can't remember if it has a J that would cause palatalization. I think it's akan. So it would be akin. Akin dréam. Because it means vast, but also means increased. It's past participle of akan, which means to increase. So they are increasing his music by playing it. So he speaks. Iluvatar says, how am I going to adapt this? I now want you to use the theme I gave to you to make music. Use the materials I gave you to make music, basically. On quath he. The hymn, the two hymns here refer to two different groups here. Hymn here is the ainur, and hymn here is alfadr. It's just the ambiguity where him is both singular and plural. It means him and it means them, so it's ambiguous. But it's not ambiguous because here they is the subject, and this refers back to a singular subject here, so it's he. So the grammar makes it unambiguous, but when we translate it, it does sound ambiguous. All right, on quath he. So the he still has to be Iluvatar. So yeah, on quath he, I just don't want to say alfadr again. Or maybe I can. Maybe I can just stretch this out for a whole line, this whole quote here. Why am I lengthening that? Like alfadr. On quath alfadr. That can function as the whole half line. I'm gonna let it. It doesn't have to be a whole half line, but I'm gonna make it a whole half line. Quath alfadr. I can't. E does not alliterate with F, or with H, so I'm going to say to the ainur, but I'm going to say to the something ainur. This is a little bit tricky. Quath alfadr. Or maybe I just start the quote. Quath alfadr. Switch keyboards real quick. This. I want to use these brackets here. Old English manuscripts would not use anything for quotes, but I'm going to use this just for myself to mark the quotes. These little triangle brackets. Okay. Quath al-Fadr. No. Sorry, something just opened on my computer that I did not want to open. Give me a moment, and our stream is going to end soon, so that's a bummer. I know that will take all of my bandwidth. Please stop. Please stop. End this. There we go. Okay, that was scary. Alright, like with F, I can dréam. There we go. That's another half. These are two very short half lines, but they work. Quath al-Fadr. I can dréam. Unexpanded or great music well, this is makian. I don't use that verb very often. But sometimes you just gotta, you know? Makian means to make. But there are other ways to say make in Old English, so I usually don't use makian. In poetry, at least. It's more of a prose word, but maybe yemakian, because that has more of a sense of fashioning something or causing something. And I'm going to make it a command. Yemakiath. Yemakiath. Yemakiath no. Words with M or N. Oh, make now. Does that work? Yeah, that works. Makiath no minra antimbra. A great music, a vast music, make now of my themes. So minra, alliterative with Yemakiath here. It's a little odd to have the verb be the alliterative thing, but verbs do alliterate from time to time. Like I did it here too. Luton here. Yemakiath no minra antimbra. And when you do alliterate with a verb, it tends to be significant. There are significant verbs that you will use. And that's what I did up here, too. I didn't really point it out, but yeah, leide l'arquidum for the Luton here. So they bowed before him. Yeah, okay. What do I want here? What else do I want to say? Make a great dream from my themes. Make a great music from my themes. Because I kindled each of you with the flame imperishable. Do I still like this translation? That's another thing I'm wondering. Whoops. That was not supposed to happen. like blast. Blast is where we get the word blast from, but it means like a blaze. It's related to blaze too. Blaze is the verb that it's related to. The burning flame. I think it translates flamma in Latin. So yeah, the flame. And unbrosniendlich. I can't remember if that's attested or if I made that up. It's attested. Unbrosniendlich. For imperishable. I don't remember that also means incorruptible, which is perfect. I can't remember the context it comes up in. I'm going to look at where it comes up. It comes in the homily. This homily is lig homos grapiendlich. And þára unbrosniendlich at heude grapiendlich. Okay, this homily too. Okay, it's used in homilies, so it's very much used in a Christian context, which this is a Christian context, I would say, or Christian adjacent context, because it's Tolkien here, and he has a single god creating all the other gods. So, quath alfadar ashen dréam, mina an timbra, and because I kindled each of you with the flame imperishable, blast and unbrosniendlich, alliterate, because the you kind of disregard that as a prefix. An adjective here. The B is what alliterates here. So, what I could do, okay, so there's two things I could do with this. I could say, Sithan anda blasta unbrosniendlich. So then each right, EU. I might just use eo instead of ewich. I kind of like how ewich sounds. Okay. And Sithan Alda I think should actually be long. Yeah, I think it should be long. That was a mistake I made in high school. Who didn't make mistakes in high school, let's be real. Okay. Alda each Sithan Alda. Actually, I'm going to save Alda for the end of the line. Ewich mid blasta un brosniendliche Alda, since you with flame perishable kindled. It's times like this that I wish that Old English still had a passive voice conjugation. Only hatan still has a passive voice conjugation in Old English. Passive voice is gone. You talk around it like we do in English. We use periphrastic construction. Gothic still had a passive voice that you just put on a verb. I want to put a passive voice on this. Say are kindled, because I don't want to have each here as well. Because the syntax is weird here, which it's poetry, so it can be weird. It's not like it's bad, but it's a lot here. And since you with flame perishable, each alde. Okay, because when you have a word like sithan, the thing that you usually want after it is the verb. So maybe alde, each, which, but then I have both pronouns here, and that's taking a lot of stress. Like this is stress, and then to not have either of these pronouns stressed but wait until this is a lot. I don't think I can do that. That would push both blasta and ambrósnianlíc into the second half of the line. So I have to move one of the pronouns over there. But that feels weird then. So like, and so then alde mid blasta ambrósnianlíc ich ewich. Alde ich mid blasta ambrósnianlíc ewich. Ich alde. I'm just going to do a poetic each alda at the end of the line. That's what I'm going to do. Because ewich after the sithan feels fine to me. And you with flame imperishable. Since you with flame imperishable, I kindled. I think that it parses. That just reads better, I think, a little bit. And since you with the flame imperishable, I kindled. I want to at least finish the sentence and then we'll be done. That you shall adorn this music with each of your thoughts, which I'll use here again, I think, if you want. Alright. Aken dréam jamakiath no mindre antimbra, and so then ewich mit blasta brosnid. So then ewich mit blasta, und brosnien dicha ich alda. You will all Yeshulon Athyrian. I like that verb, Athyrian. Athyrian. I want to use he in the second half. I'm going to use hleuður. I need an H word. Athyrian hleuður. And it is a neuter noun, and it means song. Hleuður. Hleuður. You should an Athyrian hleuður. I think it should be definite, though, shouldn't it? That. So should this. Med blasta. Oh, there's thu, and that's what I used in the original, didn't I? Yeah, thu blasta, yeah. Farian that hleuður. Ég skulle farian that hleuður mid huyum. That's weird to see it in plural, actually. Your inclinations. With huyum, it's never tested in the plural, this word. So maybe I don't want to use this word. Maybe this is where I do use yahid instead, because I think that is tested in the plural. It's neuter. Okay, that's weird. Oh, it's weird because it's an I stem, isn't it? Hate them. Yeah, hate them. That works. Med jag hate them. shall adorn that music, that sound, that song with your thoughts. So I need to fit that in. And it needs to be instrumental plural, so I'll put on your this neuter, so it's eorum. Eorum. It's optional there. Eorum. What else does he say? Is that a good 10? But I'll sit and listen and be glad that it'll get in the song. I don't know if we need to include that part, because we already said that he was glad when he listened. So maybe we could just repeat that part. Antha ye. This is gonna be fun. I love doing this in poetry because this does happen, where you see the same line repeated, but it's this grammar is a bit different to make it fit in the context. Thaya at samna, gliwiath, tha glad, beo. Or do I want to use beom? I like using beom, it's fun because it has an M in it. Glad. Beom each. Yeah. Then I am glad. So, and when you play together, then glad am I. The thing with beom, using beom instead of elm, is it imparts the idea of like general truths. Or maybe I don't want to use werda, to become, because that has more of a future sense. Glad will I be. Glad will I become, and it's used in the passive. It's used for passive voice too, so it's like he's passively sitting there and just listening to the music. Glad werda each. Okay, cool. We finished this quote. I think that's a good stopping point. I think I want to mark here something. Maybe what I'll do is let's do this. I'll mark it as green to say that it's done. Okay, cool. Cool. So we made some good progress. Writing alliterative verse takes time, always. But I kind of like what we have. Let's read through it one more time before we end the stream. So, Sa'an och the allfadern ärlige nämnet ärsta hargan his hiebarn shelp. He rekte him an timbro ellenkraftige dramas and the alch glewode the glad was allfader. And odre herknaden lange hvile for den alch aras of ainulindalë thus allfader orthankas. Ag höra anget greo a delbre weoks thanna dramas lystan. Tha he beun him at samne an breme an timber. The mid wuldre an jinth and mid glame endath. Oh no. Doesn't alliterate. We need to switch the order. An yinth mid wuldra, an endeth mid glama. Doesn't sound as nice, but it does alliterate, at least. Okay. The an yinth mid wuldra, an endeth mid glama. Him leide larquidum forthu luton here mid sweet. Wait, what happened? Him leide larquidum forthum luton here him swien liche. An quath alfader. Aken dréam je makieth no minra an timbra an sithan awich de blasta un brosnian lichich alde je shulan a feirian. You know what? No. This did alliterate. I realized what happened. Onion is it has vowel alliteration, but onyinan does not. The alliteration is here, and that's why it alliterates with the G there. Whoops. Okay. Sorry, delayed reaction there. Alpha der Aken dréam je makieth no minra an timbra an sit an awich de blastam brosneliches alda. Jeshulan a feirian that leodor mit jahidum o eurum an thayat samna gliwieth tha gladwer the each. Yay! Okay. We're 12 minutes past when I said this stream would end. I have to go eat and do other things today. But thank you for tuning in, anyone who's tuning in already. And thank you to anyone watching this in the future. I hope this wasn't horribly boring. Just 2 hours of me staring at a blank screen. But hopefully that kind of makes it a little bit easier to see. Maybe not. Hopefully you can sort of see the process of thought that has to go into composing this. Now imagine if I didn't have any writing tools. I just have to remember everything that I came up with, keep it in my head, and then recite it. So composing a literature verse is no joke. It's a lot of thought that goes into it. So we're going to stop there for now. I may come back to this project next time we do a project stream, which may not be next week, but the week after. We'll see. But I do plan on doing more of these, and some of them may be me coming back to this project. I have other projects that I want to share my work on, just because I think it might be fun to see. But in any case, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your time zone. Farewell.